This is John Smith. Recently, John left Canada to work and live in the United States. As a Canadian who is permanently working abroad, there are three important factors outlined by the Canadian Revenue Agency that John needs to consider in order to determine his residency status. The first factor is where his permanent home is located. The second factor is where his partner and children live. And the third factor is where John himself lives. John lives in the United States. His wife, children, and his pet also live with him. However, there are other secondary factors that the Canadian Revenue Agency considers when determining the residence of Canadians working abroad. Some of these secondary factors include a Canadian driver's license, investments in Canada, and personal possessions. A single secondary factor on its own will not cause you to remain or become a non-resident, but they must be evaluated as a whole when examining their impact on your Canadian residency status. As you can see, John has many secondary ties to Canada, which means he may be considered a resident of Canada for tax purposes. This means he would then be taxable in Canada on his worldwide income. Depending on the circumstances, this can either be a positive or a negative situation. For example, let's say John wanted to escape the cold and work in the Bahamas instead of the United States. Unlike Canada and the United States, the Bahamas has one of the lowest income tax rates in the world. Hold on, John, that money isn't yours yet. With all of John's secondary factors, the Canadian Revenue Agency now considers him a resident of Canada. This means John's income is taxable in Canada, and so he will pay the higher Canadian rate as opposed to the lower Bahamas rate. It's important to remember that when you leave Canada to work abroad, your tax obligations come with you. There are many factors that affect your status as a non-resident, and there are tax implications to be aware of. The only way to legally free yourself from Canadian income tax is to completely sever all your ties with Canada and become a permanent resident somewhere else.